incident. We turn now to the United States. US President Donald Trump has warned that countries attempting to quote-unquote play games after a key US Supreme Court tariff ruling will face much higher tariffs. The court ruled that tariffs he imposed last year under a national emergency law were illegal. The decision has renewed uncertainty among trading partners over signed and pending trade deals with the United States. Posting on Truth Social, Trump called the ruling ridiculous and said that nations have ripped off the US for years, even decades, and they would figure tougher penalties than those recently agreed. He ended the post with a blunt message: buyer beware. Joining us now to discuss the ongoing situation coming out of the United States is Ross Feingold, a political analyst. He joins us live from Taipei in Taiwan. Ross, thank you so much for joining us here on the broadcast. The United States, Donald Trump in particular, has, of course, signaled his dissatisfaction with the Supreme Court ruling on Truth Social, using aggravated language. But first of all, what are the questions that we still need to know when it comes of the future of these tariffs and the economic implications surrounding them?
We know since President Trump came back into office a little over a year ago that tariffs and changing the trade relationship that the U.S. has with major trading partners, especially those countries that had significant surplus with the United States, was going to be an important part of his foreign and economic policies. That will not change in the aftermath of the Supreme Court ruling. So we see that within hours, President Trump utilized other available legal authority to adjust tariffs, and he'll continue to look for those legal authorities. This has been discussed before the Supreme Court decision, as well as in the days afterwards, what those various authorities are. They do, in many cases, require the government to conduct investigations and issue findings and give targeted companies the chance to respond, and various steps that could delay that process. But the key point here is President Trump is definitely not going to give up on tariffs. Where there is legal authority to raise tariffs, he'll continue to do so. And then also, it bears mentioning once again that where countries have negotiated an agreement with President Trump, with the United States government, President Trump is going to expect those countries to adhere to those agreements and not to propose to renegotiate them.
What about how he's reacted in terms of imposing initially a 10% and now a 15% levy? What's your analysis of that?
Clearly, he's very angry at the Supreme Court justices, and specifically the conservative justices that voted against him. He's not going to forget this. He's made that abundantly clear. Initially he said 10%. He thought about it some more and then raised it up to 15%. I mean, I think that shows how angry he was at the Supreme Court decision. But it's also another form of leverage to reach deals with those countries that haven't reached a deal yet with his administration, or to remind those countries that have reached a deal, but maybe the details haven't been finalized, which is that's just the reality of some of the deals. They were frameworks with details yet to be negotiated. But again, I think the point here is for those countries that did reach a deal with President Trump, this is just another tool to remind them that either those deals need to be finalized, or where they've been finalized, they need to be implemented.
And Ross, the balance of powers in the United States has been much under debate when it comes to the Donald Trump presidency. But what does this say about the power of the judicial branch and the executive branch during Trump's 2.0 presidency?
And we should also throw into that question the legislative branch, because we do have three co-equal branches of government in the United States. Look, President Trump has clearly shown a willingness to test what the strengths of executive authority are. And if people disagree, they have to litigate. So he has all the advantages of the federal government and the army of lawyers across the federal government, including in the Justice Department, of course. So I don't think he's going to give up on that approach. So whether it's trade and tariffs or environmental regulations or the vast public policy areas where the White House and the president makes decisions, I don't think he's going to back down. He's going to continue to robustly use executive authority and challenge people who disagree to litigate, which is a very costly and time-consuming process. And just because of this one decision doesn't mean that the next time the administration will lose in the courts. They might very well win. Keeping in mind that between his first term and 1 year into his second term, President Trump has literally nominated or had confirmed hundreds and hundreds of judges throughout the United States federal courts.
Ross Feingold, do stay with us as we turn over to our next story.